Hey Snapchat, coming to you on day 6, my final day covering negotiations. Day 1 was about figuring out the benefits to you and the benefits to the other party and who the key decision makers are. Day 2 was about the important topic of anchoring, which is about establishing a range so the other party understands your negotiating parameters. Day 3 was about not negotiating piecemeal. Don't go through the points and negotiate each one. Negotiate as a package. Day 4 was about the BATNA. BATNA is a best alternative to a negotiated agreement, understanding what you're going to do if you walk away. Day 5 was about getting market signals, getting input from other people who have had similar negotiation to help you know what's possible. And day 6 today is about the close, and I want to teach you some big mistakes people make in the close of a negotiation. The strangest phenomenon of negotiations is how much people dig their heels in early in a negotiation, and conversely, at the very end, people make huge compromises and chuck in the kitchen sink. It's a very well understood psychological outcome of negotiations. People get fatigued. A friend of mine who used to negotiate a lot in Russia told me the following story. He would negotiate with Russians over real estate deals, and they would keep him for hours and hours in a room, and they would eat food and not offer him anything. I'm talking about real hard-nosed, brass-knuckles negotiators who knew what they were doing. My friend told me the first time he ever encountered this, he saw at the very end of the negotiation, everyone was so fatigued they just gave in. So my friend, the second time he ever negotiated with the Russians, he showed up with his own lunch. But even though it's a true story, it's really just a metaphor, because most negotiations take place over days, weeks, sometimes months. But people get so beaten down over talking about the same issues again and again and again, they tend to cave at the end. People also have a sense of reciprocity. If they've given and given and given and you haven't been given anything, they really pull back on a negotiation. That's why it's super important that you pad a little bit the things that you want in a negotiation so you actually have things you can give. And it's really important psychologically, because any negotiation, it has to be a sense of both sides giving and taking. So my advice for you is just be really aware of your own sense of fatigue at the end of a negotiation. If you want to give on stuff to get a deal done, that's okay, but just be aware of why you're doing it. And don't be super pedantic and detail-oriented at the start of a negotiation. At the end, just say, fine, just take it. The important thing is to think about a negotiation as a marathon. Start strong, stay consistent, and finish strong. The second point I want to make about the close is be aware of the clock. Great negotiators understand if you're under pressure on time, and they'll use it against you. Equally, you need to be aware of how to create compelling events that drive the other side to the point where they have to finish the negotiation. For whatever reason, I've learned about negotiations is people wait and wait and wait until it's about to go off a cliff, and then everyone negotiates. Think about U.S. Congress as they negotiate budget deals. Think about Greek debt and redoing the Greek debt. It always goes to the last minute. And my final point on negotiations is manage your temperament. In some situations, in tough negotiations, I find myself just being dispassionate. In some situations where it's called for, I can get really angry. Sometimes it's authentic, sometimes it's generated anger. For the most part, I recommend keeping your cool, not taking things personally, not rising to the occasion. One of my most difficult negotiations of all time, the other party at a breakfast meeting in front of everybody stood up and said, "Fuck you." Literally, that's what he said. And I calmly said, "Please sit back down. It's in your best interest to finish the negotiation." He sat down, he got that off his chest, and I was able to get it back to the table and say, let's just stay focused on what's important to you. When I got focused on what was important to him, which was money, I found a creative solution for us to get past an impasse. We couldn't agree a monetary transaction in that case, but I tied his money to a future event that if it happened, he would get paid. And I was willing to live with it because if that event happened, it meant that I had more money to actually pay the individual. Find creative solutions, get past impasses, find win-win opportunities like the one I talked about, and finish strong, control your emotions, get to the finish line, be pedantic and detail-oriented. Be careful about other people running the clock on you, and find creative ways to create a sense of urgency that negotiations have to complete.